journalists really need news to use, as it is often said. They want to be customer-oriented, they have to be customer-oriented, therefore they invest their energy in subjects that are rather service to the customers, to the audience, because they also need to produce news that sell. The market is determining a little bit, or more and more determining also journalistic behavior, editorial staff concepts, and a total management of a media house. Then furthermore, we have the transnational impact. News today are not only produced for a national public, they are immediately spread over the new technologies all over the world, if possible. Many times also German media already produce news directly in 2 languages, in English. You certainly know the very well organized website from Spiegel.de. In English you have a special edition and a special dossier also that always tries to follow what is happening in the environmental area. And well, this technological innovations gave us the possibility today for those who work in the media to do something that in former times was not possible. We have really a real-time coverage. The news that is produced is immediately spread among the audience and very soon loses the qualification of being new. So this is what confirms this hard pressure for my colleagues, for the journalists, and also for the media outlets. They have to survive in an ever more competitive environment. According to a very interesting study that the professor from the University of Jena, Georg Ruhrmann, and his assistant Roland Goebbel led recently, the study states some very interesting results. Those 2 communicational experts did a comparison, a 3-fold comparison, by taking into account journalistic study books, style books of news agencies, and also they interviewed leading journalists. And they came to the following conclusions. News today are more dynamic, more complex, and even more diverse. Then TV news especially are very much commercialized and more getting apolitical also. And also they are considered in many occasions, especially in the private news, in the private television sector, private broadcast sector, rather as a service with the aim to be rather amusing than informing. So those are some characteristics one has to bear in mind when wanting to have access to the media today. And let me also come to another very important issue, that is the news value. The news value really determines if an event is going to be a news or not. And it is already a long time ago, for decades, it has been discussed what are the news values and how have they altered. And the recently cited study gave you an impression what is the new tendency in the news production. And nevertheless, the news value, I would like to, is still very important and inherent in every journalistic professional education. So that is what journalists learn, how to differentiate events. You will here find some very common topics. I can maybe give some more explanations because this is quite interesting to know, and for people that have this background can better organize their press releases, can better choose what issues could match the needs of the media. So I will start with frequency. Of course, events which occur suddenly and fit well with the news organization's schedule are more likely to be reported than those which occur gradually or at inconvenient times of day or night. other hand, it is clear that long-term trends are not likely to receive much coverage. Bad news are still more newsworthy than good news, you will know that surely. But you can also expect different trends. For instance, the German news agency DPA tried to organize a certain thematic package where they picked up especially good news from Africa. A continent that is famous for only producing, in quotation marks, bad news. And the surprising effect was that those stories that were spread by the DPA news agency had really received a very good coverage, and I will explain later why also. The issue unexpectedness is clear. Everything that is out of the ordinary is likely to be noticed by the media. Unambiguity is another important issue. Events whose implications are clear are easier to be covered. Events with a complex background need more investigative energy, need more knowledge, also need more time to invest. And, well, it is not always possible to invest this kind of energy in the situation today. Personalization. Events which can be portrayed as the actions of individuals will be more attractive than events without those so-called human touch or human interest stories. Everything that is culturally near, that is concerned with a region where a media outlet is produced, which is really close to the people that live in a certain area, that look the same and share the same preoccupations as the audience, is also likely to be more reported than things that are very, very far away and have nothing to do with the audience, where the media outlet is produced. Then the reference to elite nations or elite persons is very important. Stories concerned with global powers receive more attention, of course, than those concerned with less influential nations. I say of course, but I don't want to legitimate this kind of selection process. It's simply something that is routine to journalists and in editorial staff rooms. Therefore I said of course, but it is very important how you shape your personal press release to overcome this kind of routine and this kind also of prejudice. I'll leave this like this in the hall, in the conference room, and maybe we can discuss it later also after the lecture. Conflict, everything that is opposite to the mainstream, that promises, in quotation marks, a dramatic effect. In general, stories with conflict are newsworthy. On the other hand, there is something that seems like a contradiction, and it is a contradiction, because at the same time there is this issue of consonance. So stories which fit with the media's expectations receive also more coverage in many times than those which defy them, because simply the journalists are not well prepared for things that defy them too much. So you can have different effects when it comes to those two news factors. There's another factor called co-optation. A story that is only marginally newsworthy may be covered because the background is not very famous or not very currently discussed in the public, means that the story is not that likely to be picked up immediately by media. So you will have to work a little longer on accessing media with such a story.